Hello and welcome to my month of July wrapped. I really hate ring lights. This is just so full on, but without it, that's not happening. No, there's no sunlight in winter. Hey, Sylvie Sky. So let me tell you about all of the books that I read in the month of July. So in July, I read a total of 59 books, but 10 of those were DNFs. So I read 49 books in full in July. Out of those 49 books, 18 were 4 stars and above, which is fantastic. That's a lot of really great books that I read. Some of them though were below 3 stars, and that's because at the beginning of the month, I wasn't DNFing as stringently as I normally do. And when that happens, I'll get books less than 3 stars. That's why I DNF. I'm trying to safeguard against anything lower than a 3, because at least a 3 is still okay. So don't worry, I am back on my DNF game. I will not be pushing through any books that are feeling like a 3.25 or less, because that's when you get to the danger zone.
Lana. What? Danger zone.
I read a total of 14,156 pages this month. So that averages out to 457 pages a day. I don't think the following months will be as high as this year has been, now that I have my kids more and have less personal time. So I should be reading less than that. Genres, as usual, I read from a whole array of genres. So I'll put a little graph up here so you can see. If I was going to pick the best cover, my favorite cover was Kitten Tits. Okay, I love the pink, I love the cat, I love the stars, I love the text, I love the title. It's very eye-catching. I think it's a well-done cover. The book, on the other hand, yeah, you remember this was the book about the 10-year-old in the 90s who had the foulest, dirtiest, pottiest of potty mouths ever to exist. And the writing style also wasn't up for me. There was no grammar with the punctuation and the dialogue. So I did DNF that book very quickly, but the cover, gorgeous. If I was going to pick one book this month, that's the best book, I'll tell you soon. I'm like, I was going to tell you now, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm spoiling the anticipation. When I get to it, I'll let you know. But as usual, I'm going to read my Goodreads reviews for the books that I rated 4 stars or higher in the month of July. Okay, so first up we have Goth by Kate Leth, Diana Sousa and Robin Crank. And I gave this a 4.5 stars. Turns out I was like every other bi-teen goth. Could relate, but not to the gross pedo teacher hitting on me. Would have preferred that wasn't part of the storyline. Otherwise, it was a very nostalgic vibe. And then there was the Holistic Guide to Gut Health, Discover the Truth About Leaky Gut, Balancing Your Microbiome and Restoring Whole Body Health by Mark Stengler. So I just gave this a 5 stars, which generally means it was a nonfiction book that I took actual usable advice from. I was medically diagnosed with leaky gut many years ago, which also led to me developing numerous autoimmune disorders. And my holistic doctor put me on a protocol much like this one, and I ended up healing it and putting my autoimmune conditions in remission. I think this is an easy read, super handy guide on where to start with treating numerous conditions with natural remedies. And then I read the poetry book Aphrodite Made Me Do It from the Myth and Magic series by Trista Mattia. I gave this 4.5. Like flipping through someone's journal/Pinterest board filled with a lot of tarot and Greek mythology references. Main themes were abuse, queerness, and self-acceptance. Ace of Wands. Poet airs her grievances was my fave section, but also liked the bits about Pandora, Eve, and Medusa. I'm personally a Persephone girly, but still enjoyed the Aphrodite spin. And then I read The Tinker's Daughter from the Chronicles of Lusitopia, second in the series by Josephine Angelini. I gave this book a 5 stars. I wish Dragon would cover me in his gold dust, please and thank you. I loved this. Once again, we revisit the land of Lusitopia where people from Earth can come and laugh for realsies. Janara was an awesome main character and Dragon was an equally awesome love interest MMC. The severely flawed villain Asphodel was giving Loki vibes, and I smell a possible redemption arc, but overall I loved the medieval type quest and lessons learned along the way. Also, even though this was slightly more adult than the last one, it's still very PG. If this had been full adult, it would have been my perfect Dragon Lord romance book. And then I read Persephone Made Me Do It, which is a third in the Myth and Magic series by Tristan Mattia, and I gave this a 4.5. Poetry about Persephone with themes of transformation, duality, mother-daughter dynamics, and womanhood. Highly recommend getting the physical book, as the colour images are stunning. I loved the mixed media format. And then I read Of Silver and Sin by Caitlin Platt, which was an arc from NetGalley, and I gave this a 4 stars. God's blessed maiden, meant for slaying monsters, has to work with one to fight a bigger evil. Said monster feeds off pleasure, and he's hungry. This is a dark romantasy that's polyamorous. I liked the magic and world building. The characters are also interesting. This was very fast-paced sex-wise, and I'm not really a fan of thruples, but I still enjoyed this. As much as I love Rain, I won't be continuing the series. It's a bit too heavy on the SA and violence for me. That being said, I feel the romantic scenes could have been more descriptive. And then I read The Blue Book of Nebo by Benon Stephen Ross, and I gave this a 5 stars. Post-nuclear world, where a mother and son are surviving in the Welsh countryside. Reading survivalist books like this do cause me anxiety, because I honestly don't know if I'd want to try to be a survivor or just peace out. But it was such a beautiful, quiet story. I shed tears. It was well done. And then I read The City in Glass by Nebo. This was also an arc from NetGalley, and I gave it 4 stars. A demon nurtures her beloved city, only to see it razed to cinders by angels. She curses one of them and binds him with her grief and anger. Together, they set about rebuilding the city. The angel and demon do not exhibit humanness. They are definitely other. It was fascinating to see how they behaved and exhibited emotions such as love, fear, and loss. The writing is incredibly flowery, syrup thick in its purple prose. It takes effort to read, and is mostly vibes, little plot. This book is basically Vitrine's love letter to her city. Whilst I consider the relationship between the demon and angel to be viciously romantic, this is not a romance. That ending was rough, and my shipper heart suffered, but it felt right for the beings they are. And then I read Aloras by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I rated this 4 stars. Woman who wants to make her mummy proud teams up with a depressed anthropologist to slay a demon. Said anthropologist is actually a super advanced human who knows science, but the more primitive locals on the planet think he's a full-blown Gandalf the White. Nia, the not-quite wizard, was interesting, but the FMC felt like stale bread. There is the tiniest whiff of a possible romance and perhaps a smidgen of plot, but this was mostly about the differences between humans at vastly different ends of the evolutionary chain. Also, a lot about Nia's job ethics. The demon isn't fully explained, and it feels like the first chapter of a longer book, but I thought it was interesting. And then I read Illuminae from the Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and I gave this a 4.25. Teenage girl dumps boy and then restarts relationship online after the planet they're on is attacked by a rival company. On 2 separate ships, they swap information online while one of the ship's AI gets trigger happy and the bioagent turns the infected into clever zombies. The story is great. The mixed media format was less so. Too much of the book is written as texts where the characters use shorthand texting lingo, and the word chum is used way too damn much. The teenage relationship was also a bit young for me, but this is YA. It got real hectic in the end and is certainly unique in its style, but I think the story would have been better with adults who at least text in more fleshed out sentences. And then I read Life's Too Short, which is a third in the Friend Zone series by Abby Jimenez, and I gave this 5 stars, and this was my favorite book of the month. This book had me bawling, just a whole bunch of crying emojis. Oops, I dropped my monster condom that I used for my magnum dong. That's relevant to the story. Where can I get an Adrian? Please and thank you. This is probably my favorite Jimenez. The freeloading relatives, Insta family, and lengths that this man will go to for the woman he loves, all delivered. Life is too short to not read this book. And then I've got Calamity in the Uncharted Hearts series by Constance Fay. I gave this 4.25. Banished daughter of a top 5 family and her ragtag crew get hired by another top 5 family with a caveat that their son is coming along on the mission. Sparks fly, volcanoes erupt, and bullets are fired. A fast-paced romance sci-fi, romancify, that filled the spot, just like Arcadio's package. And then I read The Lover by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which I gave 4 stars. Red Ribbon Judith, the hunter, and her killer wolf meet in the forest. Dark and devious, a fun quick read. And then I read The Witchstone by Henry H. Neff, which was for my Wild Ones book club, and I gave this book a 4.5 stars. A devil-may-care demon, a surly woman with skin problems, and her nerd Tolkien-loving brother go on a mission to find some items and break a family curse. Disappointing son of a high-level demon is told during his work performance meeting that he's going to be turned to sludge if he doesn't show some initiative and hit his quota in 6 days. To do so, he must help a family break their curse, but things go awry. It's a fast-paced scavenger hunt with a deadline and lives at stake. Death feels like a movie. Think The Da Vinci Code, National Treasure, Born Identity, and Supernatural. Laszlo is a funny cat. The 5,000-year-old lady demon and the meek pawnbroker were also great. Maggie, however, felt like a wet blanket. We get a hint in the epilogue that she might be developing a personality, but she was a drag during the quest. Was I still shipping her and Laszlo? Yes, but there is no romance here. More body horror than I was expecting, but it was an enjoyable read. And then I read I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. I gave this a 4.25. 33-year-old Iranian office worker gets reprimanded for emailing a co-worker about their crappy office habit. HR adjusts her computer and accidentally give her access to everyone's emails. With firings on the horizon, she tries to utilize this illicit information for her benefit, but things go tits up. There's a lot about mental health and emotional ups and downs. Along the way, she actually gets to know people and maybe falls in love. It was a train wreck, but an enjoyable one. And then we have Vault of Souls by Josephine Angelini. I gave this 4.75. Reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones. There's a lot of magic, politics, and bloody battles. The magic system and world building are fantastic. The 3 windows and saints are also a very cool concept. The book is absolutely brutal and violent. To be honest, there was a point where I would have DNF'd had this not been an arc. There are vile characters in this and things done to children that are hard to stomach. Naturally, I am shipping the heck out of J17 and St. Elowen, the whole forbidden love thing. Also hoping Morrigan and Rain can fall for each other. Lycus and Avel need to die ASAP. And Lauren can join them for doing absolutely nothing to stop his Joffrey-ass brother from hurting whomever he has feelings for. Obviously I'm invested and will continue the series, but my god, did we have to have 8 POVs? That's way too many, bro. I also hope they change the current cover. And then we have The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, which has a cute cover, and I've given this 4 stars. Blue-haired magic librarian and her talking plant flee a burning city to return to their island hometown. But things aren't as rosy as they used to be. There were magical creatures aplenty and oodles of jam. This was high stakes than I was anticipating, but I did enjoy it. Not gonna lie, I kinda want a cozy cottage by the sea surrounded by berry bushes with my BFF plant pals and a hunky handy Merehorse handler. I read The Orange and Other Poems by Wendy Cope. I didn't give this a rating, but it would be more than a 4 stars. Good, but not life-altering. The faves were The Orange, Names, Absent Friends, and Being Boring. There was also Hereafter by Amy Lynn, and I didn't actually add these, so I've actually read 20 that I would consider more than 4 stars. Lots of crying emojis. Grief. Goddamn grief. The way this is written is very easy to ingest. The heartbreaking content is like a lump in your throat. It's only been 10 days, I think. If I go now, I can still find him. He might even be waiting for me. And then the final book is The Bound Worlds, The Devoured Worlds, 3rd in the series by Megan O'Keefe. I gave this a 4.25. Canis wasn't as much of a major player in this one. It felt a bit rough, especially with the new future expansion issue, but the love story kept me going. And Tarquin is still my cinnamon roll. And that series overall, I would rate a 4.5 stars. So those were all of the books that I read in the month of July. Let me know what your favourite book of this month was. And until next time, stay wild, Star Child.